So, what should the U.S. role be? I'm just going to try to make a few quick comments. First, I think it's really important to underscore that it would be a real problem if the U.S. were to do so or be perceived as favoring secular parties. There is this strong perception that the United States has a goal to make Muslim societies less Islamic, that it's anti-Islamic, that it's hostile to Islam, and this pours out of people very spontaneously. It's not a obscure thing that comes out when they think about it. And there is a perception that the U.S. is domineering in our government's relations with the U.S. Do you think the U.S. more often treats us fairly or abuses its greater power to make us do what the U.S. wants? And 62% say the U.S. is basically pushing them around. On the question of whether the U.S. generally favors democracy, the dominant view is the U.S. favors democracy, but only if the government is cooperative with the U.S. And then another 41% say the U.S. actually opposes democracy in Muslim countries, and only 6% think the U.S. is, unquestionably supportive of democracy in Muslim countries, irrespective of how cooperative they are with the U.S. Another important point is that we sort of have a reflex that says we're going to, here's a new democracy, let's create political parties. And I think, we have all kinds of resources and expertise that it's set up to do that. And I think that we should not make that a top priority. It's doubtful that the U.S. can be or will be perceived as being even-handed. There is a lot of question about how well the U.S. can actually deal with the Muslim Brotherhood and so on. The second is that basically, if you in a purely secular Islamist competition, the Muslim Brotherhood will probably have an advantage because it is more organized, its positions are clearer, and most people are sort of struggling with it. So that in a kind of secular Islamist competition, I think that the Islamists are more likely to gain the upper hand. So if you're, and that is going to be the first way that people will spontaneously move toward organizing. So what do I think the U.S. should focus on? I think it should focus on giving greater voice to the majority. And the key thing is that the majority of Egyptians have both Islamist and liberal attitudes, and these do need to be integrated. People need to work this out more. They have not been in a kind of political environment that encourages them to think these things through. They need to deliberate on it. There are systems that can be used to help people in this deliberative process. And as this happens, that can create a political equilibrium, and I would predict the parties will kind of emerge out of this interface. Parties will put themselves forward as being something that integrates these two elements. The Muslim Brotherhood already tries to do this, but there are going to be others that will be, in a sense, more centrist as they attempt to integrate. So the development of a public voice is really key here. I think it's essential to the development of civil society. In the United States, in most countries, you say, the public this and the public that. The public will never feel this or never accept that or is demanding this and so on. And there's a kind of schema in one's mind when one forms, and that is very important. It creates a kind of center point of equilibrium in society, and that is not well developed in Egyptian society by any means now. And interestingly, we also asked them what they thought about the idea that there should be an agency to study public opinion, and 75% endorsed this idea. We also addressed the idea of having these kinds of citizen assemblies, which are again, I think these are the kinds of things that are going to need to happen in the process of developing this political culture. The idea is a group of 500 citizens is randomly selected to represent all the different types of people in the country. This group needs to consider a current issue facing the legislature and hears the full range of arguments on the issue. People discuss the issue and then express their point of view, and then their views are then communicated to the legislature. And 62% thought that was a good idea. There's also the idea of developing what we're calling a citizen shura, which is where you get representative sample of Egyptians, and they are they commit to being available on an ongoing basis. They are provided internet access so they can be communicated to very regularly, and they review the issues that are emerging in the political discourse. For fundamental issues, they are gathered together in clusters around the country to be involved in these kinds of citizen assemblies, and then their conclusions are communicated to the whole group and so on. So I think these kinds of models that involve developing a voice of the people, because within each individual you have, when you have these big numbers, 90%, obviously most Egyptians are both endorsing liberal and Islamist ideas. They're looking for a way to bridge those. And if you're focusing on the majority, that integrative voice will increasingly take hold in the society, I believe.